All right, I'm excited about this topic. I brought it up yesterday. Charles Barkley on the TNT show, the NBA studio show, had some really strong comments. Do we have can we run the sound from that, or we're not going to do that?
We have the tag board right here. But
All right. It would have been much better because the conversation was great. But here's what Charles had to say about Cleveland. And I've had conversations with him about this, and I know he loves the city of Cleveland. It's just his kind of town. Cleveland's one of the most underrated cities in the world. I love going to Cleveland. There was a lot more discussion around that. In fact, a lot of the guys on the show were like, "You don't love Cleveland. What are you talking about?" And so they started quizzing him on what's your favorite place? What's your favorite bar? And he
knew
did not disappoint. Yeah. He, for whatever reason, and he does like the people too. And he said people, are good to me wherever I go, but people in Cleveland, how you go to an area and you're like, yeah, this is kind of my area. The people seem to suit him, and vice versa.
I gotta say, obviously it's great, and we love it here when people say nice things about Cleveland, because all too often people knock Cleveland. In a lot of those times, it was people that have never been here or have been here once. Like, you go to a place for 3 days, you don't know the place.
No.
You got a little tidbit of it. You don't know the place. But what's stupid though is like every people do this all over the country. Like, my city's great and your city sucks. When the reality is, every city has some good things about it and some bad things about it. Obviously, some cities are bigger than others, so there's more choice. Like, if you go to New York, Chicago, LA, you're going to have more choices of things to do. They're much bigger cities with a lot more people and a lot more money. I get it. But ultimately, most of the things you can do in New York or Chicago, you can do in Cleveland too. Right. There's just less options of where to do it because it's a smaller city. Not that it's bad, it's just smaller. And there are major positives from the only one that's not from this area. There are major positives about Cleveland, including we don't have traffic.
Yeah.
Facts.
We don't, and okay, there's a rush hour, but you can avoid that. And it's there's no, like in New York, Chicago, LA, other really massive cities, Atlanta now is crazy. You have unexpected traffic. In Cleveland, there's almost never unexpected traffic.
No.
You got some traffic in the morning for rush hour and some in the afternoon, depending on where you're going.
Or in the morning if you're stuck behind someone who got T-boned and you're trying to get to
Or if you got stuck behind somebody who got T-boned. But that's it.
What the hell is this?
Like, that is a huge, think about this, right? When I was working in New York, I lived in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Ooh.
Okay? Bayonne, New Jersey, when I first was working in the Fan in New York, it was in Astoria, Queens. But soon after, it moved to downtown Manhattan, right out of the Holland Tunnel. I don't know how many miles it was from my house in Bayonne to the radio station, but it was less than 10.
Yeah, I would say 8 or 9.
Nothing, okay? There were times, because I worked all kinds of crazy hours. I filled in, I did overnights, I did every shift.
Yeah.
Now, there were times where I could get there in 15, 20 minutes.
But you couldn't rely on that.
But but more often it took me 45 minutes to an hour. There was one time it took me 2 hours and 20 minutes to go probably 8 miles. 2 hours and 20 minutes. This is crazy. I don't have to, you know how stressful that is? I don't have that stress. I think I've sat in traffic. Now, I don't work 9 to 5.
Did you have to wake up 3 hours early, be on the road 3 hours early before you shift?
I would generally leave my house 3 hours before my show.
That's
generally.
That's disgusting.
Now, if I was doing an overnight show where I knew there was unlikely to be traffic, I would probably do like 2 hours. But generally, I left. But here's the thing. Here, I think I've sat in traffic 10 times in 12 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what a difference for my life that it takes me 14 minutes to get to
Did
work.
you notice that your stress in general is less?
100%.
Yeah.
So when you
100%.
so you would talk to a guy like Bull who comes from Metropolis and comes in here, the traffic is important to him, right?
It is.
For other folks, like
we take it for granted.
When I was living in Chicago, a 30-minute drive is where I live from to get to Chicago Stadium. 25 minutes on a normal day, no traffic. But if the game was on a weekday, we'd have to be at the locker room an hour and a half before the game, so I had to be there at 6 o'clock. In order for me to make it at 6 o'clock, I had to leave my house.
Oh, you're dealing with rush.
I had to leave my house exactly at no later than 5 minutes to 4 to make it to the stadium by 5 minutes to 6.
And that sucks.
And so you're wasting half your life part of this thing daily.
And
right?
so your situation and my situation is interesting. So it's opposite of Bull's.
Yeah.
Bull grew up with it So it was part of his ecosystem.
Right.
You and I, coming from here, did not. I spent 10 years in New York, and I'll echo what you said. I got a story one time. I was leaving Midtown after our show at noon. It's the worst snowstorm that we'd ever had during my 10 years in New York. I lived just across the Hudson in New Jersey.
Right.
I got home at midnight. It's a true story.
Shut up.
It's 100%
That's
true
extreme
story.
because of the
Shut your
weather,
mouth.
but still,
I ain't
here it
going.
wouldn't happen like
I'm not
that.
going. I ain't doing it.
We sat.
Yeah.
We sat on the West Side Highway and did not move. I mean, and you can't get out. It's not like you can back up. I mean, it was 4 lanes, bumper to bumper, as far as you could see this way, and behind you.
Yeah.
There was a traffic accident going into the bridge on the GWB.
Yeah.
And you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're just done. And it took like 4 or 5 hours for it to clean up.
True story to the Chicago story, right? So we would, as trying to time this thing, we learned that Michael lived maybe about 5-7 minutes from us. We knew exactly what time he was getting on the freeway, right? Or he would try to head out to the game. Well, so we would change our route and get on the freeway. It was a closer exit by where we lived, but we went down by his exit because what would happen for him, they knew his car. You know, his license plate name on everything, right? The state troopers would see him on the ice hour.
Yeah.
And then what they would do is escort him in, but they would escort him in like this. They would get on the shoulder, turn the lights on,
and have one in front and one behind.
and he would jump in. And so we were like this.
Getting in
Oh,
there?
hell, get behind them.
Good to be king, man.
We just
Good to
gonna
be
ride
king.
behind
God.
him. And that's how we would get down to
Yes.
the stadium.
If you think about it, traffic to people is so tough that Kobe Bryant got in a helicopter. Think about that.
In
Yeah.
LA. Because
You're
LA
right.
traffic's probably even worse than New York.
LA's the worst I've ever seen.
And
But New York is
I've heard Atlanta.
right there.
Steve was telling us
Atlanta's
just
bad now.
blown up.
But you know what? Like, I used to think I knew what traffic was.
Oh, no.
I did. And then I
Yeah.
moved to New York, and I'm like, I'm not kidding you. I was there 3 months.
Yeah.
And I had a telephone conversation with my general manager at ABC in Tampa
Yeah.
about leaving.
Yeah.
And the number one reason was the traffic.
Right. And listen.
I had never experienced it, and I said, I can't do this. I can't
Yeah.
spend 4 hours a day in my car. I
crazy.
can't
And
do that.
listen, I'm proud of being from New York. That's my heritage. That's where my family's from.
cannot do it.
I love New York, but I have no desire to live there again.
Right.
The only thing
Well,
I really
especially when
miss
you
is,
escape it. When you get out, you're
right.
like,
The
oh
only
my
thing I really
God.
miss is some friends and family.
Don't you laugh now when people talk about traffic?
Oh, my God,
I chuckle.
yeah.
People say, "Oh, the traffic getting to work." I'm like, "Yeah."
And by the way,
I used to think
another
that was
thing
bad
that's
too.
great about Cleveland compared to most cities in America is the cost of living.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheap.
Oh, yeah, no
It's
question.
unbelievable.
And the
No
people.
question.
My house, where
We're nice.
my house, which is a modest, I live in Rocky River. It's a nice town.
Sure.
But I have a modest house. It's nothing fancy. My house in like an equivalent
7
town
figures.
in New Jersey
7 figures.
would probably be $1 million.
It would.
It's
It would.
crazy. So yeah, and
Nah.
the only thing that's more expensive in
Nah.
Cleveland is 2 things. Do you know what they are?
What are they?
Seafood
Yeah.
and this. Not for me, but the women will understand this. Getting your nails done more expensive here.
Is it really? I've never talked
Because
to my
in New
wife
York,
about
there's like
that.
a nail salon on like every
Oh, that's
corner.
true. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. 5
But
on every
those
block.
are the only 2 things that are more expensive.
Flowers in New York are very cheap.
Oh, maybe flowers.
You can
okay.
get flowers on the street corner.
Yeah, all right.
Like a beautiful dozen roses.
But in terms
for
of
$9.99.
housing,
Seriously?
It was unreal.
housing, gas, commuting costs,
Everything else is more expensive.
significantly cheaper.
McNuggets.
All right, we got to do what the internet says as we bring Polk in here. He's going to do his segment next. But whenever we tell you what's being said on the internet, it's brought to us by our good friends at PCC Airfoils. And when I'm done with this read, we got a little jingle from Eddie, too, by the way. So
Oh, good,
we're going
good.
to hear from Elvis Eddie. Take your choice. Looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits? PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. You can apply online at precast.com/careers to learn more. Elvis, take it away.